Hello, and welcome to Walking and Talking in Video Games. My name is Dova, and this is a series where I will walk around video games and try to talk you to sleep as we follow my ADHD brain wherever it decides to go. Tonight we're going to be walking around Ark Survival Evolved, and I have the settings turned down really low because, well, this is actually the third time I've tried to record this, as the first two times went very, very poorly. The first time, I kid you not when I say that I was only able to record about 1 frame per minute because I had my settings up as high as they would go, and the game ran just fine, but my computer certainly did not. Let's go ahead and get started. So yes, I apologize that the game looks a little primitive. It kind of reminds me of Halo 1 graphics back on the original Xbox. But it's still pretty. I mean, look at the reflections on the water are still gorgeous. And the dinosaurs still look pretty good too. Also, I apologize if I end up moving my camera a bit too quickly. I'm used to playing this game in, well, a survival kind of way, and not super used to playing in a way that's calming. But I did change the settings so that the dinosaurs don't even know that I'm here. So they'll still behave in their normal way as if I don't even exist. So it will remain a mostly peaceful experience. Well, it will remain a peaceful experience. If the dinosaurs around us end up attacking each other, I will of course turn down the volume so that it does not disturb you as you're trying to sleep. But I'm really excited to just have a nice explorative walk around this world. It's such a beautiful game, even at these graphics. I have a lot of love in my heart for this game. Well, love and hate, I suppose. I have cried over this game, mostly because I have a hard time emotionally handling it when it's out of my control. Like, awful things happen and they're out of my control. Like, this game is, as great as it is, it's packed full of bugs. And those bugs can make it devastating at times, to say the least. There have been quite a few times when I have lost everything to an unfortunate bug. There was one. So it's kind of funny looking back on it now, but it was absolutely not funny at the time. But there was one bug where, so this game, if you're not familiar with the anti-cheat features in this game, it has an anti-meshing feature where if you try to mesh into the ground, basically like go underneath the ground or into the terrain, it will automatically kill you, assuming you're not using like the ghost cheat or something like that. And the purpose of that is to prevent people in multiplayer games, like the PvP especially, from being able to clip underneath the ground and get places they aren't supposed to be, to cheat. Well, I was playing a single player world and was not trying to cheat, but I was riding, so I had a Sarcosuchus, Sarcosuchus, which is an alligator crocodile type dinosaur and or creature, and it is extremely fast in the water. So I was riding it through a river and just minding my business, shooting through this river, and I ran into a rock on accident. And I guess I ran into this rock a little too hard because the game decided that I was clearly trying to clip into the ground and cheat, and it automatically killed my Sarco, whom I had quite the emotional attachment to at the time. And it devastated me. And I wasn't the type to cheat in a new dinosaur. Well, I don't think, this was my first playthrough. I don't even think I knew the cheats at the time. But all I knew was loss in that moment, and a completely unfair loss at that. I was very, very upset. And then another time that the man, it's called getting arced when this game just completely screws you over and you have absolutely no control over the situation. But there was another time when I was playing on a multiplayer server that was online all the time. And while I was offline, I think I was just like, well, it doesn't really matter what I was doing. I had a life. So whenever I logged back in, I found myself dead. And I had no idea why, because I had logged off safely in my house, in my bed. And whenever I checked the tribe logs to see what had happened, it turned out that a raptor had killed me. So I spawned back in, and sure enough, there's a raptor in my bed. Just, all the doors to my house were closed. I had no idea how this guy had gotten in. He must have just spawned there somehow. And that's not supposed to happen because around player structures there's supposed to be a limit to things spawning. Not just dinosaurs, but also like plants and things like that too. But this guy did not care about that. I think there's a parasaur stuck in a rock over there. Yep, sure is. Oh no, he's just stuck on a tree. No big deal. But yeah, this raptor did not care at all that he was not supposed to be there inside my house, and he completely obliterated me while I was, and it only happened an hour before I got online. So, but because it was an hour before, all of my stuff had already despawned. I think our server settings were set up so that whenever you died, your bag stayed on the ground for about 45 minutes. But, so I just barely missed it. Which was really, really unfortunate because I had a bunch of things on my body that I really liked, really good weapons that I had found and things like that. But you pick up, you move on. It's kind of like real life. Sometimes things happen and it uproots your entire life, and there's not much you can do about it but pick up and move on and try to make things better. Speaking of Sarcos, here's one right now. So this was the alligator, and he's not moving at his full speed, but they can move really fast. Let me see if I can get on his back and take a ride. I know I can get on the backs of turtles, but he's avoiding me, I think. There we go. Nope. That's okay. I'll let him be. He doesn't even know I exist. You just feel invisible weight on his back. There's some parasaurs. This is like a safari. And on your right, oh, sorry, above you actually, you'll see a Paraceratherium. These guys are not my favorite. They're like... Oh, actually, I don't even want to say what they look like, but I'm sure you can imagine where my brain goes. They're ugly, ugly. I mean, all the love, buddy, but you're not the most attractive creature. Here's a snake, a titanoboa. You know what? They're kind of fat. Like, you would think that for their width, like if you think about real life snakes, this guy is definitely overweight. He's eating well. But I guess when you're a snake that big, that it's easy to find prey that's smaller than you. But this game is full of extremely, upsetting, dangerous things. And if you are not prepared for it, it will absolutely ruin your fun. And there's so many things. Obviously, I'm not getting attacked right now because everything is set to ignore me, but especially in an area like this, the swamp, there will be battle music playing left and right because there's just so much here that will jump you. And speaking of attacking, something. I think that snail is. Oh, there he is. Oh, poor guy. Here's a Dilophosaur. I have read that they don't actually have these frills. Of course, they have them in Jurassic Park, which is my guess as to why they have them in this game too. Probably took the same inspiration, but they sure look cool with them. I like the frilled lizard thing. One day well, I kind of had this goal as a kid, so I really love dragons, and I had this goal that I wanted to, throughout my life, own one of every reptile that's named after a dragon. So bearded dragon, Chinese water dragon, a frilled dragon. There's this little gliding lizard too that's called a dragon. Something. But I don't have that dream anymore because that is a massive commitment and a whole lot of responsibility that I am okay not engaging in, especially since to actually pull that off, I would probably have to have multiple at a time throughout my life. And I want to, of course, keep my animal ownership to a manageable amount. But this was also around the time that I was watching a bunch of pet YouTubers, and they all have like 50 to 100 plus pets. And that is not something to aspire to. I don't even, at least back at that time, pet YouTubers weren't even that popular. Like, they had a good amount of, all the ones that I watched had like in the hundreds of thousands of subscribers at most. There was only, I think, one with 1 million, which was kind of crazy to me because animals are a pretty popular thing. But, well, and this was just like the pet YouTubers that owned exotics, which was what I was really interested in because exotics are my favorite type of pet, other than dogs. Dogs are amazing, but other than dogs, I prefer exotics over cats, over livestock, etc., etc. I just really find them intriguing. And by exotics, I mean like, I'm sure there's a specific definition for it that I don't know, but basically like the pets that you don't automatically generally think about when you like reptiles, small mammals, birds, bugs even. And I'm not huge on owning bugs, though I would consider a jumping spider because they are absolutely adorable. But I've wanted a snake since I was maybe like under 10 years old, I think. Like, I wanted a snake for a really, really long time before I finally got one in college. And it's maybe a decision that not that I regret it. Not at all. But the snake that I ended up with has such an attitude and does not like hanging out with me, which was the thing I was most excited about, was being able to just like exist with her. have her wrapped around me, moving around me, and I was extremely excited to build her terrarium as well because I don't know, I find it's like interior design but for an animal, and I really love enriching my animals' lives. Like I spent $100 on a 50-foot tube for my ferrets just so that they could have something to play with, and I have absolutely zero regrets about that. But with the ferrets, I only recently learned that they have a 5 to 7 year or so lifespan. I thought all this time, I've had them, they're 5 years old now, and I've had them since they were 2. And all this time, I thought that they lived as long as a dog, and I don't know where I picked up that information, because I must have misread something somewhere, because I looked it up again recently and I checked multiple sources and they all pretty much unanimously said it's more like a 5 to 7 year lifespan. And that absolutely crushed me because, like I said, my ferrets are already 5 years old, which means they're seniors, and that makes me sad. But I hope I've given them a good life. And I think they're happy. I love them to death. They're the most precious little babies. They're so adorable. They're like little teddy bears. Their little teddy bear faces and ears, and they're just so precious, so sweet. One of them is deaf, and she's so funny. She can be louder than the dogs sometimes because she will scratch. If she wants out of her cage, she will scratch at the plastic, and it is extremely loud because she will sit there and she will do it for like 20 minutes before she gets tired. And ferrets sleep 20 hours a day, but if she's not where she wants to be, even if she's out of her cage but just like in a playpen or something, or she's wandering around the house and she wants to get into a room that the door's closed, she will sit there and she will scratch. And so even though they sleep for 20 hours a day, well, I think it's more like 16 to 20, but all those hours that she's not asleep, she's scratching at something. So she can be a bit of a riot, but it's crazy how a deaf ferret can be the loud one. Although it does make sense because she has no concept of how loud she's being. But then the other one, her name is Mocha. She's my baby. She's like my heart ferret, my soul ferret. Oh, poor guy, he's bloody. But she loves belly scratches, and this is something that started up kind of recently, like within the past year or two. But she absolutely loves belly scratches, and she's got a really pudgy belly right now because it's winter and she's got her winter body. But she'll turn over and I'll scratch her belly, and if I hit just the right spot, it's just like a dog. She'll beat her, like throw her leg. What do you call that? She does the leg thing that dogs do when you hit just the right spot. But because she's on her belly, she'll just do it in the air rather than like thumping on the ground. I can't tell where that sound is coming from. Or that roar. There's a white drop. Maybe I should be talking about the terrain a little more. I'm just kind of wandering. That Tapahara down there is in the water and not flying anywhere. Silly dinosaurs. But to your left, you'll see a white drop. And to your right, you'll see a cliff. I'd like to get down there and maybe walk along the water again. But I am not sure. Goodness, he's loud. I'm gonna have to find a pathway down. This map is so big. I've just been wandering in circles, I think, but I could easily probably spend hours walking at this speed. Probably spend hours getting from one point to the other. I don't want to fall. I'll walk the long way around. What else? Oh, did any of you grow up playing video games like your entire life, or did you get into it later on? I remember my first video game was Halo 1, and my dad got me into it because he was a gamer. He's not really anymore, but although he was pretty into golf with your friends for a little while whenever I introduced it to him. But I remember, well, maybe Halo 1 wasn't my first game ever, but because I also had a Game Boy Advance. I never had the original Game Boy, and that was mostly just a matter of, it's not that I was too young to have a Game Boy or a Game Boy Color, but I just think I wasn't that interested in video games until after Halo 1 and then around the time that the Game Boy Advance was released. Although I can't remember which one of those actually came first, but I do remember we had the original Xbox, of course, and then I had, for my Game Boy Advance, I had the Tom and Jerry game, and I had this Pac-Man game, and then I had Mario Party. But that version of Mario Party was kind of awful, and I feel like it must have been the first one because I don't remember there being a number. Like, you know, there's Mario Party 8 is one of the Wii versions, or Super Mario Party is one of the Switch versions. I don't remember there being like a number or an extra word, but one of the Mario Parties anyway for Game Boy Advance. And it was kind of poorly designed because, unless I was just doing it wrong, but you could only, at least in the single player mode, I don't even remember if there was a multiplayer mode. I didn't have anyone to play it with if there was. But in the single player mode, you could only, basically if you ran out of dice rolls, so you only had like a certain number or something, and you had to land in the right spaces to earn more. And if you ran out, you were just done. You couldn't continue the game. So trying to make it through the entirety of the single player mode was nearly impossible unless you just got extremely lucky rolls. So I, of course, did not make much progress on my Game Boy, but I picked up the game again. But at this point it might have been like 10 years ago, but still, I was playing an emulator on my phone. And in this emulator, you could kind of cheat. You could basically like make a save and then go back to the save. So you would save right before a dice roll. And then if the roll didn't go the way that you wanted, you would just go back to the save, which you couldn't do this in the game, in the actual physical game on the Game Boy. But so this was totally cheating. The other nice thing about the emulator is you could speed things up, make it go faster instead of taking forever to do things. But like the animations and the movements. But so that's how I finally beat the game on my phone, was I cheated. I used the save function to redo my dice rolls when necessary. And you know what? I stand by that decision because I do not know how I would have been able to get anywhere without it. Because, oh, I wonder why he's not running. Now he's trying. But I don't understand how you're supposed to be. If anyone knows, if you're having a, Well, I want you to sleep. I want you to prioritize trying to sleep first and foremost, but if you happen to be on your phone at the moment or whatever you're using to watch this and know anything about that Mario Party game, maybe you could tell me something that I'm missing, or I could just look it up. I might do that. But I haven't thought about the game, until now, I hadn't thought about the game in years, so it's not really that big of a deal to me. But interesting at least. But then, so the other thing is, right, the Game Boy Advance didn't have a backlight. So the only way to see it at night was if you had lights on or like something shining directly onto it. So my mom my mom was so precious. She was worried about my eyes, but not in the way that made her think that it was a good idea to take away the Game Boy. Instead, she bought me a light that you clip onto it and a magnifier that you clip onto it. And you couldn't use both attachments at once, unfortunately. But the magnifier helped you, well, in obvious ways. You could see the screen better, make it a little bigger for yourself. And then the light helped because there was no backlight. And it was such a revelation when I got my DS Lite and years later, and it had a light and I could actually see it at night and I could sneakily play my DS when I was supposed to be asleep before school. Actually, I got into an accidental habit for a while in, I think this was either middle school or high school, where I would sleep until 1 a.m. and then I would wake up at 1 a.m. and grab my DS off the charger and then just play it until 5 or 6 and I was supposed to wake up for school. And those were the days back when having a sleep schedule like that wasn't absolutely punishing to my body. It definitely is now. I could not handle that now. But I actually really enjoyed that. I'm such a night owl because I really prefer the peace of existing at night when the world is asleep. And so that was perfect for me because I could just play my game in peace and silence. It was lovely. Oh, I miss peace. Having a full-time job, having to exist during the day when everyone else is awake, drive when everyone else is driving, and the roads are horrible. I feel like I haven't. It's hard to find peace in the world sometimes. But I certainly look for it where I can. And right now, this is something that's peaceful for me. It's a bit meditative, just talking to myself for hours. And sometimes, I mean, I'm sure you've noticed, I have a lot of pauses. I'm not a great speaker, but as long as I can follow my brain on the many tangents that it goes on, my brain has such a strong ability to go from topic to topic to topic. And I know that's a big part of ADHD brains, but it's definitely handy for something like this. And I hope you're enjoying it. I I think it's I hope I'm keeping you engaged. I'm certainly keeping myself engaged. But I also like being able to just walk around like this. And I have no idea where I'm going. I am not really paying attention. I'm just walking in directions. Probably should stop and take a look at the scenery some more. Such a beautiful game. I have so many memories of this game, like so many nostalgic, wonderful memories among the awful ones. Uh, Memories of things like hunting wyvern eggs and searching for the phoenix on scorched earth with my friends. I've made a lot of good friends through this game. I don't talk to most of them anymore, but still, the times that we did share were great. And so many awful memories of things like being taken off my mount by thylacolios and microraptors and the badgers whose names I forget at this moment. Being attacked by a dinosaur and killed, and then you can't get back to your stuff because that dinosaur is guarding it. Or jellyfish holding your mount captive and you can't get it back, and you can't get it to... It can't kill the jellyfish because it's frozen by the jellyfish, and it can't get away from the jellyfish because it's frozen by the jellyfish, and so all you can do is helplessly watch it die. Good times. This game is so... something else. But... I've got such a soft spot in my heart for this game, despite all the trauma that it's put me through. I actually started up a new playthrough of it a couple months ago, a few months ago, because I've never actually beaten the bosses completely by myself with just my dinos. I'm not really sure why. Every time I've done it, I've been with other people, other tribes who have their own dinos. And so I wanted to be able to say that after putting in over 1,000 hours into this game, I wanted to be able to say that I had actually beaten the bosses all on my own. I still have not done that yet because I got distracted with Pal World. I've been playing a lot of Pal World lately because I also haven't beaten that. Although, Pal World is... I mean, they're still adding a lot to it because of course it's not finished yet, but it's got a whole lot... It's lacking in story, which is a bit disappointing to me because I love a good story in a game, but I really love creature taming. I don't think I would enjoy a survival game that didn't allow you to tame creatures. That's absolutely my favorite part. Taming, breeding, riding. I just love the creatures. And I suppose that's because I love animal ownership in the real world so much. But there's just something about them. I don't even know how to explain it. I just love creatures. And look at, he's so pretty. Look at that microraptor. This is really nice. The sounds of nature. Well, artificial nature, I guess, but good enough. I wish I could have made the graphics better for you, but it is what it is. But I'm so glad you're here with me. This is so nice. Ooh. Look at him. He's like a hot Cheeto. Good day, sir. Look at that mountain in the distance. This game can be really peaceful when it wants to be. If you just listen to the birds in the background, the sounds of the forest, the occasional cry of a nearby dino. There's an Archaeopteryx in the tree. You can see the shafts of sunlight through the trees. I turned off the light bloom so it wouldn't be too blinding for you, but I think it is still a little bit bright. The gamma's just on its normal setting, but I wanted to be able to see at night too, so I didn't turn it down. There's a Thylacoleo and a Carno. A poor deer. If I had to pick a favorite dino, or I guess a favorite creature, because there are plenty of non-dino creatures, including my personal favorites, but it may be a bit of an unsatisfying answer. Ooh, he's pretty. But my favorite creatures in this game would definitely have to be power-wise, definitely the lightning wyvern, and then as a mount, 100% the griffins. The griffins are my absolute favorite mounts for their speed and maneuverability. They're some of the only birds or flying creatures that can move backwards in the air, and they are also some of the few flying creatures that have a dive function, where if you are in the air and you aim down, you can dive toward the ground and pick up speed, and then soar through the air afterward. And if you can do it just right, you can get some serious, insane speed on them. So you can also dive bomb and get some decent damage on other dinos, but it's not really worth it. It's much better to focus on upgrading stamina and health and things, I think. Health definitely, because losing your favorite griffin is a painful experience. But if we're not talking about mounts, I'm not sure what my favorite shoulder pet would be. Maybe, probably the fjord hawk, because that's kind of irreplaceable with its ability to get your items after you die. Because the thing that makes this game so emotionally difficult for me is that you can lose everything in an instant. After weeks, days, weeks, months even of work, you can lose it all because of one wrong move or even one simple bug in the game that just completely ruins things. And so that's what, especially if you got your dinos killed because either something was attacking or they were in a cryopod on your body and you lost your body. So that's where fjord hawks really come in handy, because they can retrieve your things when you can't. And there have been quite a few times where even if I can potentially get back to where I died, I can't find it because the death beacon will not show up, or it'll be clipped into the ground and you can't get to it, or whatever. It's frustrating. I really love raptors in this game. I don't know why. They're like my preferred pack animal. I love having a pack of them like dogs. I just think they're super cool. I tried designing a raptor sticker once, but I couldn't get it to look right and eventually gave up. I did design an otter one after the Ark Otters though. And I gave it a little Indiana Jones style hat. I still really like the way that it came out, but I feel like I can only draw well whenever I'm in the exact perfect mood to do so. Like, I have to have this certain level of motivation and desire to draw. Otherwise, even if I try to sit down and force myself, I cannot make anything that looks even halfway decent. I'm not sure why. Feel like with other art forms, you can, of course, if you have to force creativity, it never comes out the way that you want, but at least with other ones, I can kind of like make myself make something decent. But with drawing, I just can't. If I if I'm not in the exact right mood, it always comes out poorly. The proportions look wrong. I can't get the lines to go in the direction that I want them to. I don't know. It's tough. Being an artist is a tough gig. Oh, Sabretooth. This is a pretty RG. It's like a scarlet macaw almost. Well, if a scarlet macaw was only scarlet and not other colors. Speaking of macaws, birds are also another exotic pet that I got really into for a while. I think it would be cool to have a parrot. My favorite parrots are African greys and green cheek conures. But having a parrot is like having a toddler, and I don't want to have a toddler, so I probably should not get a parrot either. And they restrict you a lot. You have to be there for them constantly, otherwise, because they get very emotionally attached to you, you are their flock. And so if you even just leave on a vacation, they take it personally. They have a really hard time with it, and I just don't like being restricted like that. Because as much as I love my animals, sometimes you need a vacation to Hawaii or something and you just can't take them. And so at least with a dog, or especially with a reptile, reptiles are so easy. I mean, easy is relative. Of course, no animal should be thought of as easy because you don't want to end up neglecting them by thinking that you don't have to take the responsibility seriously. But reptiles are the closest pet that you'll get to having furniture. Having a pet be furniture. I think probably, I've never owned fish, but I would imagine probably even easier than fish because well, maybe not, but the idea of having to keep the water at like a certain chemical balance or keeping the tank clean, it just seems a lot harder to clean gallons upon gallons of water, even with a filter, than it is to just clean a pile of poop out of the corner of a reptile cage. Because, like I said, even with a filter, because I've got a tank of water in my snake tank, because she's a Brazilian rainbow boa, and she needs insanely high levels of humidity. And one of the ways that I achieve that, well, one of the ways is with a fogger, but another way that I achieve that is with a big pool for her to climb into whenever she wants. And so in order to achieve that, I have a 10-gallon tank within her giant enclosure, which she lives in a 4x2x4 enclosure. So 4 feet tall, 2 feet wide, 4 feet long. And it's freaking awesome. I've got a bunch of climbing structures in there for her because she's a semi-arboreal species, which means that she needs to be able to climb sometimes. She's not like a species that stays in the air all the time, but when she likes to climb, and it's good exercise for her. So that's why I got her such a tall tank, so that she has the freedom to do that. And I just remodeled in there and added extra climbing structures. And it makes me so proud every time I see her on them. I feel like I feel like a good mom. So I'm glad that she's been liking it. But yeah, so the tank, I have a 10-gallon tank within her however many gallons enclosure that technically is. And I've got a filter in it to keep the water clean. Sorry, I'm getting tired. I'm yawning. And the filter helps a lot, but still, like, I've got a bunch of rocks and stuff at the bottom, and how do you clean the rocks without... it's so much easier to wipe the bottom of, like, an enclosure floor, a dry enclosure floor, than it is to go in there and clean all those little rocks. Or clean within the water that exists inside the tank. And if you have to replace the water, that's so much water that you just have to, like, find a way to take out and then dump. I don't know. It just seems like, in general, owning a reptile is easier. And you can't you can't pet your fish. I mean, sort of you can, I suppose, but you can't take them out and hang out with them like you can with a lizard or a snake. And that is disappointing to me. Ugh, terror birds. They are absolute menaces in this game. Somewhere around here, I believe, is where I had one of my first bases ever. Somewhere on the black sand. Maybe... yeah, that way, I believe. Gosh, the other side of the water just looks awful. Let's go to the volcano. We're not going to be able to get all the way up there because we're on foot, but we can at least kind of make our way. Maybe go to the valley. I think the valley is that way? We'll find out. I remember when I got my first Quetzal in this game too. Oh, an Acrosaurus. Oh, I have the additional creatures mod, which adds some pretty cool creatures, including this acro. He's scary, but cool. But yeah, I remember whenever I was trying to get my first Quetzal, I was playing with my boyfriend at the time, and we spent so long trying to get a gosh darn Quetzal and made so many mistakes along the way. Ooh, that's a cool RG. It's like toxic waste colors. But I wanted a Quetzal because, well, for one thing, it has the ability to pick up a lot more, like, bigger dinos than an RG can. And of course, being the avid tamer that I am, I liked that because that meant that I could tame things more easily by moving them to places that were more convenient or dropping them into taming traps. So I was intrigued by that. And then also the fact that you can make a platform saddle on its back, which nowadays is not something that I have really any interest in. And that includes platform saddles for Brontos and things as well. A lot of that is because, oh, I think that's a cave. Yeah. But you can't cryo a dino with a platform saddle without losing all of your platform structures, which is really inconvenient. And then But also, just I am not much of a builder and don't have much need for a platform or a mobile base. I mean, there's some things that would be handy, but it's not worth lugging around a giant dino for it or riding around on a super slow Quetzal. Ooh, sorry if you're not a fan of bugs. We'll move past that. But look how beautiful these mushrooms are. This kind of reminds me of being in Blackreach in Skyrim. Has that kind of vibe to it. I love this exploring aspect. Have you ever wanted to go to the caves in, like the glowworm caves, and see the worms on the ceiling that look like stars, galaxies of little worms that are... Bioluminescence is such a cool, incredible thing. Nature is incredible. Which is why we need to do everything we can to protect it. I heard this theory recently that humans are not from Earth. Like, humans are unnatural here. And sorry to wake you up, buddy. And when I first heard that, I was like, that is so silly. What are you talking about? But then, as I heard, and I heard this in a YouTube video, I think, but as he started explaining his point of view and explaining the theory, it started making more and more sense. And then I saw somebody else that I know in real life say it, and I just can't really stop thinking about it. But basically, the theory is that humans cannot be natural on this earth. Because if we were, then we wouldn't be destroying the earth as much as we are. Because I have to try to remember all the details, but basically we are ruining the earth. There would be balance without us. And I don't want to say anything that sounds too silly because I don't know all the details of what was said. I don't remember everything, but humans have done so much to mess up the planet. And it seems like without us, life would be in balance. There wouldn't be deforestation, climate change, etc., etc. All these ways that we're quote unquote innovating, and we're just making things worse for the natural world. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense to me. And it's not that I actually think that humans are aliens or things like that, but I feel like there's definitely something to be said for the fact that maybe our existence is unnatural here. I don't know. I don't know what explanation I would give it to make it make sense. But it's definitely something worth thinking about, I think. I can't remember how I got into this. Oh, there we go. Found it. But anyway, I think it's an interesting theory. Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm gonna have to squeeze around you. And I think it's a cool thing to think about. I don't know what we'd be able to do about it, but thought is the start to any sort of change, so there you go. There's your thought. But even if we aren't natural here, I think that we have a responsibility to try to make things better, to try to fix what we've broken. And obviously, it probably wasn't. Every person can only affect so much. Even the most powerful person in the world can only do so much. Like, I was watching another video on how much we've done to help fix or control climate change, and most countries in the world are doing a lot actually to help it and have made a lot of progress. But the US, sorry, it froze a bit because I walked out of the cave. The US, which is where I am from, if you couldn't tell from the accent, is not doing very much. And especially with our current president, things have kind of stalled simply because it's not his priority, and he's made that clear. But in the video that I was watching, he was saying that even as somebody as powerful as the United States president can only slow the progress that we're making. Like, one person alone can't negate the progress, can't make it worse without everyone else also making it worse. So that's hopeful. As much as maybe things are not looking great right now with our current leadership, at the very least, he's not making things significantly worse. I know it's a little bit scary right now, existing in this world, but bad things come and they go, and everything that you've been through, all the bad things you've been through up until this point, you've made it through every single one of them. And something that I learned recently is that, and I think it was actually from the book The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, something that he says multiple times is that you can't get rid of your problems. It's impossible to live a life without problems, which sounds awful, but sorry if you can hear my dog drinking in the background. But what is hopeful is that you can always trade your problems for better problems, and that's what you should strive to do in life, is upgrade your problems and make them into better problems. Like, one specific example that he used is Warren Buffett has money problems just as you or I have money problems, but we would obviously rather have Warren Buffett's money problems than our own. So, as much as problems will always exist, so will the opportunity to turn them into better problems. I would much rather have the problem of, for example, in career-wise, say your dream career is to be an artist, but right now you're stuck as a retail worker. Your goal should be to create the better problems of trying to figure out how to grow your art business rather than the current problems of trying to figure out how to survive a stressful customer encounter. And I know it's not that easy. It's not that you can just switch the type of problems that you have without putting in a bunch of work ahead of that. But I hope that it helps you see that it's worth the effort, that just because you've started on your art business or whatever it is that you're striving for, just because you've run into a lot of problems along that journey, doesn't mean it's not the right path. A giga. Or is that, no, that's not a giga, that's a carcho. Carcha? Carcha. Carchadonosaurus. Carca? I'm not the best maybe with pronunciation, but that's okay. Carcharodontosaurus. Carcar. Oh, he's gorgeous. Wish I could tame him. We did make it up the mountain. I didn't think we would be able to on foot. Oh, look at him. Very pretty. Free ride. Oh. Or not. He got busy. That's okay. It's a good thing I turned on God mode. Sorry, that was a bit too, exciting for our relaxing nighttime journey, but I couldn't help but try. But anyway, whatever it is that you've been striving for in life, I hope that you're able to push past the current problems so that you can earn the life that you deserve. And not that you need to earn it. You really, I believe that humans should have, just by existing, should have the right to be able to exist without suffering, and needless suffering, that is. A little bit of suffering is okay. The strain of training for a marathon, that's suffering that you choose, and it's temporary, and it's for a goal. Or the pressure of starting a new business, or whatever it is, that's the suffering that you choose is okay. But endless, needless suffering, humans weren't made for that. We weren't. It's just hard to think about the fact that so many people are not only allowed to exist, but expected to exist in a system that does not care about them. And I know it's a little bit, not relaxing of a thought, and I apologize for that. But what I hope is a comforting thought is the fact that you are loved and cared for by people, even if it doesn't feel like that. At the very least, I love and care for you, which is why I'm here making this content to help you sleep and help you feel better, hopefully. And I think that as long as we've got someone out there who cares about us, it makes life worth living. And it makes it easier to push through the unfairness and strive for something better. I feel like I can't help but get a little philosophical. Even though this is only the first time that you're seeing one of these videos of mine, this is the third time I've tried to record this, and every single time I've gotten a bit philosophical, maybe too philosophical, but this is my screaming into the void moment, I guess. And I just have a hard time. I feel so strongly about things like this, and I can't keep them to myself because I guess I just am constantly searching for people who understand and people who feel the same. And in that search, it brings me to bring up topics like that a lot. I'm constantly complaining about the state of the world and just shouting into the void until someone nods their head in understanding. And that's okay. I know not everyone sees things the same way that I do. But wow, that cart just made it far. But I think that even if not a lot of people around you see things the same as you, it's worth looking for the people who do. Because having those people in your life makes life a lot more satisfying, I guess. I didn't know that there were fluffy brachiosauruses for the snowy area. That's cool. I've never seen one. I wonder how many dinos actually did have hair and feathers like they say. Oh. I was hoping I could jump on his tail. I need to calm down and focus on my walk. This is supposed to be a peaceful, relaxing walk. And hopefully by now you're already asleep. But just in case you're not, it's up to me to keep this a relaxing experience and not one where I'm jumping all over dinosaurs' backs. I love the stars. There's something about them that just is magical, I think. The way they light up the night and twinkle, and the peace. Nighttime is so peaceful. There's nothing like it. I love the sunlight, but for me, nothing compares to just... I mean, I know I keep repeating the same thing, but the peace of being awake when the world is asleep. The quiet calmness of the night, away from the harsh sunlight and the sounds of the waking world. With the stars and the moon, a calm nighttime wind. There's nothing like it. When I get to the point where I'm able to quit my 9 to 5 and do this or something similar full time, I will absolutely become a night owl again. And as much as I'd rather be able to just enjoy my nights and not work through them, I think I'd still rather spend my time being awake at night. I don't know if that made any sense, but... And currently I have very peaceful mornings where I'll wake up kind of early, even on my days off, which is unfortunate, but it helps keep my sleep schedule consistent. There's a sheep. Sheep on the island are so rare. And a quetzal in the sky. But yeah, I wake up kind of early on the weekends and just go sit outside for a long time. I sit outside for like 3 hours just because it's nice. And I know the outside world is scary, especially for us nerds, but you gotta admit, you can't replace it. And being inside all the time is so unhealthy. I don't take walks much, and I should, especially with having a dog, and she gets most of her exercise by playing with the other dogs or by swimming. She absolutely loves to swim, even in the middle of the winter. But still, walking would be good for both of us. It's just hard to find the time, you know? Especially when a good portion of my time goes into, well, nearly all of my time outside of work goes into making videos, recording, editing, thumbnails, etc., etc., etc. It doesn't sound like much, but oh my goodness, the editing takes absolutely forever. And I've been getting into more low editing content, such as this, where I can just kind of record and then for the most part let it be. But even on something like this, I have to go in and turn down the volume of every dinosaur encounter so that they're not frustratingly loud when I'm trying to talk to you, such as that one. And so even something that seems like it shouldn't take that long to edit or to deal with or create ends up being quite a process. Unfortunately, the dogs are starting to get antsy, so this is going to be where I have to let you go. But I hope that you've had a good time. I've certainly had a good time with you. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, if you're still awake, let me know. If you're asleep, stay asleep. If you're falling asleep, keep trying to fall asleep. I wish I could stay with you longer, and I will strive to make future videos longer. But unfortunately, I am in charge of 3 antsy puppies at the moment. Well, not puppies, they're all several years old, but... And I have to cater to their whims like a good parent and aunt. So, thank you for letting me attempt to guide you into a peaceful sleep. And I hope you have a wonderful night, a wonderful slumber, and the sweetest of dreams. Good night.